Hi, Tobes.
Hey, Abs.
Episode 3. Welcome to the Gems Uncut podcast. I'm Abigail.
My name is Toby Cavill.
Yeah, this is a very special episode. We've never done a guest episode before. Normally have Jake with us, but Jake's not here, so we have the very legendary Toby Cavill. Do you know I saw you referred to as an influencer today?
No, you didn't.
I swear, somebody referred to you as an influencer on our lady group chat on Facebook.
I'm trying my best at the moment to try and spread the word about gemstones.
Yeah.
I'm trying to educate. I had someone just yesterday on one of my TikTok posts say exactly the same thing. Thank you for promoting our business.
No, yeah.
And it wasn't his business, in the gem world, you know. And I think one thing that's changed dramatically since I started in the industry is the age, the demographic of people that work in the gemstone industry.
Mm-hmm.
So when I grew up, when I was 18, when I first started working in the gemstone world, I worked for guys that were in their 50s, 60s, 70s, even their 80s. As the last kind of 10, 15 years have progressed, more people started to learn about gems and learn that these are real treasures and learn about all these amazing things. And so people are now getting interested in it. And this is really what I love. And this is what I'm trying to promote. Like, anybody can go out there and find gemstones. Anybody out there can make their own jewelry in reality in 2025. It's just having the understanding of how to go and do that.
Yeah, I feel like there's more accessibility around as well because you've got platforms like TikTok where you can educate yourself more about it. And even like shopping sites like Etsy. We have people in the building here that will go and make their own jewelry and sell it. So there's more accessibility in the industry for people to get into it. You see such a range of people, I feel like, in the industry.
For sure. Well, let's go back. You know, like I said, when I was 18, and I mean, I'm not even that old, right? And this is 18 years ago. You know, your way of sourcing gemstones was you would organize a meeting with someone. You would be in an office somewhere, whether it's Bangkok or in Chantaburi, Thailand, and they'd sit and they'd bring you their goods, and you'd review them there and then. Right now, I can get a WhatsApp photo. I'm currently hunting for a pair of sapphire earrings, for example, a sapphire pair of unheated Stranka sapphires. And I can get messages sent to me via WhatsApp, via TikTok, via Instagram, via social media within 5 minutes. You know,
Have you found that people have been contacting you through TikTok with the work that you've been doing?
I have currently 218 message requests outstanding on TikTok that are either trying to sell me gemstones or try and find me gemstones. So I had a woman come to me in Bangkok actually 5 days ago looking for a 8-carat Brazilian tourmaline. Now that is a feat to find in itself. It's probably one of the rarest gems on our planet. And she came to me because my family specialized in tourmaline for a long time. Mm-hmm. But still, I'm now 4 or 5 days down the line. I found nothing anywhere near the caliber of gem that she wants, and it really goes to show you, you know. But if you can go find those, you can go find those. I'm very well networked up, and that's where my kind of USP comes into play. Mm-hmm. But it's really fun trying to find something like this and trying to find somewhere where it could be in South America, it could be over in China, it could be in Japan, it could be here in Europe. Just trying to find a contact that can offer you a door, that can give you an opportunity to find a stone like that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So context for the listener, let's start at the very beginning. How did you first enter the industry?
So I finished school at 18, but jewelry and gemstones sit with my family. So my grandfather was a diamond dealer for 50 years. So my grandfather used to travel all around Europe buying and selling diamonds for a number of companies. He obviously came out of the jewelry quarter here in Birmingham, which is local to us as well. So we've always been quite local. And so following, when I was younger, I used to sit in grade diamonds with my grandfather, for example. So he'd pick me up off the bus at the age of 8 years old. And as opposed to going home, go and have a crumpet with me, with my grandma or whatever. And then we'd sit and my granddad would say, right, he'd open up his briefcase and he had this really chunky, chained up briefcase that would be in his boot. And his boot would have a massive chain on it as well, chain lock. This is back in the day. And he'd sit there and go, right, well, I've just been shown all these clients now and all the certificates have mixed up. So can we sit here? So we'd have to sit and go, right, is this flawless? Is this the round 8-carat, weigh them and re-put them into place. So it might sound like a serious silver spoon moment. It really wasn't. My grandfather wasn't a very wealthy man. He wasn't a rich man. He just dealt with diamonds. And so that was kind of my first real interaction. And then following that, my mother got into jewelry design. She was one of the key elements to the success of Gemporia and the starting of Gemporia. She was here with Steve when Gemporia started. And so she got into gemstones very quickly, but she's the daughter of a diamond dealer, so she already knows this. Yeah. And Deb's got into jewelry design. She was a massive figurehead here, obviously, at Gemporia. And then from that kind of branched out. And before we knew it, she was working with, we were working with Stephen Webster, who was a very big designer down in London. She made a pair of earrings for John Travolta's wife, which was incredible, and so she really got into that kind of, award show kind of celebrity kind of mix of people, which is incredible and opened up our doors massively from a contact point of view. And following her, so when I finished school at 18, she was still designing jewelry And she had been living in Thailand actually for 3 years at this time. And I was obviously at boarding school prior to that. And so she actually moved home at that point to the UK. She came back. She wanted to be with her family again and be with her daughter and be with her parents as such. And at that point, I really had no understanding. You know, it's like at 18 abs, right? At 18, you've got no idea what you're doing.
I still don't, Topes.
And neither do I, frankly, right? And so I went to a school where it was all about numbers. So it was all about 99% of our students went to university, right? And 95% got 3A star, or whatever it may be, you know? And that just wasn't me. And so I actually went on a gap year over to Thailand, not a gap year, just a 3-month, I've been at school for 11 years straight. We worked very long hours at school. We worked Saturday school. We had a Sunday school every 2 months. So it was pretty intense 11 years. So I just wanted to rest. And while I was over in Thailand, I met a Japanese man who worked in gemstone jewelry. And obviously that had a complete link back with my family. I knew certain things about it. And long story short, I started working for him and started working in jewelry manufacturing. And I moved to a little city in Thailand down the eastern seaboard called Chantaburi. Anybody watching would know what that is because everyone in Thailand goes to Bangkok and they go to Samui and Koh Phangan and Full Moon Parks. And I get it. And you know what? If you're ever in Thailand, go and do that. However, I'd always also say to people, go down the east side as well. That's where you're going to find no real tourism. And so I was an 18-year-old guy living in this little town of probably less than 1 million people. And I was the only white guy there. Literally the only white guy there. I'm quite a tall guy too, so I stand out amongst the Thais. Yeah. And so, I was working in jewelry manufacturer with this Japanese guy, and he was the only guy I could talk to. And he was typical Japanese, very hard-working guy. So day one, he was like, right, I need you to go and talk to these guys. I can't speak Thai. These guys don't speak English. How the heck am I supposed to do my job? So it's not my problem. No, it's not my problem at all. And that's the way he was. Yeah. And so, and I thank this guy, and this guy is probably the biggest impact that I would have had on my whole career, because over then a 6-month period passed. I learned pretty much fluent Thai within the 6-month period, but also at this time learned every in and out of jewelry manufacturing. You know, the manufacturing facility I was working in was creating 180,000 pieces of jewelry a month. And had about 400 staff. And so from that perspective, when you're on the ground, and at that point I was actually a data analyst, so I had to analyze, okay, well this week we had, 2 kilos of gold come in. What came out the other end in jewelry? Okay, we only had 1.5 kilos. Where's the other 0.5 of a kilo gone, right? Same for gems, the same for polishing, same for quality control. So he literally sent me around every department of this manufacturing facility, and I got the real know-how of how to produce jewelry well and efficiently.
So you know it almost from the start to the very end.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's really where but also I understand the hardship of working in manufacturing jewelry too. So when I'm creating or designing a piece of jewelry, for example, for our customers at Gemporia, I have to consider that person, right? And the more complex I make it, the harder the job's going to be, but also the longer it's going to take, the more it's going to potentially cost. And so this is also a really big factor to creating affordable jewelry, like we're always trying to do here at Gemporia. And then following that, I branched out. I worked over in Thailand for 6 years, and I moved back to the UK just because I wanted to.
So you went with the aim to stay there for 3 months.
I've probably never stayed.
And you've been there for 6 years.
6 years later,
and how do you feel about that? With you going into the industry, was she super for it? Was she thinking at this point, yes, Cavill and Co, this is where we're going to move? Or
it's interesting, actually. Well, what was interesting is. She was at that time, but when I finished school, I didn't necessarily get the grades I wanted to get, or my mum wanted me to get.
Right.
And so she kind of and I'll forget where to stay. She said to me, I was standing in a Bangkok apartment. This is literally as I got my result, as my mum was moving home, and she looked at me with the results and said to me, "What are you going to do now?" At that point, I was like. And I don't know why. I said, I think I could be a really good scuba diving instructor. I really got into scuba diving at that point. And she was not the happiest person ever, considering that your average scuba diver probably gets paid about £150 a month in Thailand. And it's a lovely job, but considering that the investment she just made on me going to boarding school, she wasn't the happiest. So I didn't plan on it, but I think that's the way to live your life. You know, at that point, I was looking at my friends here in the UK at university. You know, I was 18 years old, looking at them doing what they do. I was already earning money. I'd learned about manufacturing. My boss was teaching me about business. I was learning about social skills. I was being sent. I'd learned another language just in a year's space of time. Yeah. So I wasn't going to just throw that away. And once you interact with that, and obviously speaking the Thai language allows you to do so many things in the jewelry world. You want to go buy gemstones, you can speak the same language as these guys. Yeah. You can get into places that other people can't even get near. And most importantly, you network. I was known as just the white guy, right? Everybody knew who I was.
That identity.
It was my identity. And without sounding too ridiculous, Abby, it got to a point where So I was 18 years old. So I go and enjoy myself a couple of nights a week and go and socialize. It was actually crucial to me learning the language. That in fact, the more drunk I was, the more I learned because I was more confident, right?
Well,
I could
you
talk.
just said it, yeah.
But it got to a point that because I was the only white guy there, I turned up to this. There was one club in town, right, that we'd go to called Orbit. And my name would be up on the projector, right? Welcome, Mr. Toby would be there.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't say that to sound vain or arrogant. That's just how it was. I was just the white guy.
Right.
And in Thailand, it's always a custom if there's someone there that you meet, they pass you the glass, and you drink out of the glass. It's by today's standards probably sounds disgusting, but that's how it was. And a lot of my networking was done actually when I was out at night meeting people.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to then meet other people. Oh, my uncle deals with gems. Oh, my uncle works as ruby mine. Oh, my uncle also works up in the north of Thailand. Yeah. Oh, I also manufacture jewelry. And so this all then comes together. And Chancebury, you have to understand, isn't just a gemstone hub. 80% of the world's corundum, so sapphires and rubies, all go through that little town. So you've got all the best cutters there, all the best preformers there, all the best jewelers around there for making your ruby jewelry. And it just really opened up my world to the world of corundum. But from there, we branched out, and here I am today. Kind of, after coming back to the UK, we expanded out. I used to work for another company, and then I joined Gemporia about 8 years ago. And I think I say this on air all the time, I'm employed here not for my charm and wit. I'm employed here because when Jay interviewed me 8 years ago, I could offer Gemporia a hand into the world's biggest sapphire and ruby market. That was really why I was here. Yeah. And rather than us paying X amount, we could probably pay now a third of that because of the connections that we had. And this is what networking was all about, right, Abs? And since then, I branched out. So I was able to call my mum and be like, right, who can I take from your book? Who can I meet? Yeah. I'm a natural socialite. I'm similar to you. I love chatting with people. And that puts me in a very strong position. Yeah. And from there, once you understand how to source gems, I guess, and how to make jewelry efficiently, well, being a gemstone jeweler is made a lot easier. Yeah. And that's why I've built my career off it.
Yeah. So taking it back to your mum, I find it really interesting when I first entered the world of gemstones, you kind of think diamonds, you think rubies, you think sapphires, and that's kind of where it stops.
Right.
So from a generational diamond dealer family, what kind of piqued her interest into coloured gemstones?
Well, the amazing thing about coloured gemstones is this. So, diamonds are incredible and we love diamonds. The problem is that diamonds are abundant, okay? So to give you an understanding, right, 150 million carat diamonds will be mined this year, will be. When you compare that to something like a tourmaline, where you're going to mine less than, let's say, 1.5 million carats off this, right? Less than 10% of what it is. Well, now you're talking about real treasure here, right? Gemstones. Why do we love gems? Well, because they are rare, because they are hard to find in good grades, and most importantly, they don't have anywhere near the abundance of something like that of a diamond. And so, when we look at gems, if you can go and acquire a gem from a place that doesn't exist anymore, right, or is going to not exist soon, well, the value of that is going to increase. But unlike diamonds, every gemstone is different. You can get a tourmaline from the same mine that's pink, that's green, that's white, that's kind of bluey yellow, that's completely different from the nature of that. And so the construct of a gemstone's composition is totally different from that of a diamond. On average, you're going to find diamonds are going to be white, on occasion some will be off-white, and then if you get the rare ones, you'll find your beautiful, incredible reds and your pinks and your yellows. And they're really, really rare, but when you tip the scale compared to colored gems, you're talking a different discussion. And it's now about, you can find a ruby, you can find a ruby, and you can find a ruby. Now, all of those rubies can be really rare, but they can all have totally different characteristics, different traits based on their locale, based on their clarity, their size. And so that's the real thing of it. I'll give you a prime example, okay? So when I was 15 years old, my mum was living in Thailand. I just finished my GCSEs here in the UK. I flew out to Thailand to go see my mum. And she had a little cutting house in Chancebury, Thailand, and there was $1 million worth of Mozambique pre-tourmaline on the floor. Right, I remember it. I was playing ping pong. At this point, I had no real conception of what this was.
Yeah.
Now that $1 million parcel today, okay, well at that point she took a stone from that parcel, so she has herself her own ring, and she paid $200 a carat for that stone. So it was an 11 carat stone, $200 a carat. She paid £2,200 for the stone. That same stone today that sits in her house is just short of £500,000. Wow. Now that's when I was 15. That was 23 years ago. Now that's the fascination with coloured gems. But that value of that stone is not from being $200 a carat to close to $40,000, $50,000 a carat. Why? Because there is none of it. And if you've got the top and that top 1%, well, that is something that is incredible. And the same reasons, I guess, adds why why all of the world records in auction houses are held by colored gemstones, pretty much, apart from a couple of diamonds here and there. That really kind of relates with it. But also, Abs, there are so many different gems, and there are so many different types of gems, and there are so many different ways that you can find them. And some of them are up in the Himalayas, some of them are like the Tanzanite mine over a mile down in the ground, right? And so each gemstone has its own story, and that's really the key part. That is really the key part. You know, diamonds, certain diamonds will be forever. You'll always be able to get a white diamond out of the ground. Now, there are certain locations which are more abundant than others. Canada, for example, they're about to close a lot of their mines next year, and they're really special. So that for me is something that's really unique. When I talk about a white African diamond from a mine that potentially will mine for the next 35 years, for me, it's beautiful, but doesn't really have the same value as something that hasn't been mined around for 70 years.
So is it the story behind it for you, or is it more the financial investment side?
Both are key. Both are completely key, right? So when you talk about, I know there are so many different gems that we can discuss, but when you talk about, for example, I don't know, the John Saul Ruby Mine, I talk about that just because John Saul is a member of our team here. He's the guy that also founded Tanzanite. You know, that mine, that ruby mine that he had in Kenya, I mean, that mine, when he owned it, what happened? The Kenyan president shut it down, right? Deliberately shut it down, didn't allow him to mine. The Kenyan president went in himself and took out loads of rubies, right? Loads for his wife, actually, right? Just before Christmas it was. Took loads of rubies out, stole them all, and then reopened the mine for him, right? Now, the story behind that isn't necessarily the best story, but what does that show you about the value of that ruby, right? The king of the country is shutting it down to go and get some of that caliber of ruby. Now, that ruby mine doesn't operate anymore, and anyone that does have those John Saul rubies, that's incredible. You're part of a piece of history, right? And so, but then also you talk about the history of celebrities. Look at Diana, look at her influence on blue sapphires, for example. I mean, the stories behind that, Ceylonese blue sapphire for that location, that's why Ceylon is the finest place in the world to be able to get those stones. But also, in the same way, I think it's not fair. Some gemstones don't get the due they deserve. Look at something like a blue zircon. Now, actually, in 2025, it's really raising in price because of what's happened.
I saw your video on this the other day, and it got a little bit of controversy, didn't it, about your opinion on why you think this is the next big stone.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, the one company has bought the global supply of it, and let's think about this. So I always think about gemstones like this. So remember top trumps? You're probably too young in here to know about top trumps. You know top trumps? Okay, we know top trumps. So in top trumps, like for example, if it's a footballer, it's about how they shoot, how they pass, how they whatever, right? If you do this with gems, right? And we say, right, we've got pre-tourmaline, I was just talking about like my mum has, right? And you talk about a blue zircon. Okay, well, you put them side by side and go rarity, pretty comparable. In fact, the blues are very comparable. You talk about the diaphanity or the dispersion that it has. Well, a blue zircon has twice as much dispersion than that of a diamond, right? When you talk about the overall aesthetic that you get, I prefer the aesthetic of a zircon over a pre-bra all day long. The colors are pretty much the same. The only difference is that one has had a story behind it, and one has had a story that's propelled it, and one really hasn't because it's so unbelievably rare. With the main really factor being De Beers. I mean, De Beers are the masters of taking a gemstone that is massively abundant and making it seem rare, like diamonds. If they'd done that with zircon, De Beers wouldn't have been open for, I don't know, the last 250 years like they have done. They would have been open for less than, genuinely, if they'd worked at the same sales rate, they would have been open for less than 2 months.
Maybe it takes utopes. Maybe you need to buy a load of blue zircon.
Well, this is also what with the crazy thing about, now I'm getting older in the industry, now I've been in it for 18 years, you have regrets now. Right, so I mean, for my mum, for example, she only took one stone out of that parcel of Mozambique pre-tourmaline, right, and it happened to increase in value by 80 times. Imagine if she'd taken 5 stones. Imagine she'd taken 15 carats. Yeah. Right, but also the crazy thing is the rest of that material was pretty much sold here at Gemporia 20 years ago. There are people walking around with those tourmalines on their fingers without knowing the value of them that have spent probably less than £2,000 or £3,000 for these pieces that are probably worth over 30, 40, 50,000 pounds from our customer base, which is incredible. And this is also why I always encourage our customers to keep in touch with us. You know, because 20 years ago, I could go and buy a stone for $200 a carat. I couldn't get it for less than money for $2,000 a carat today. And this is the gem trade. So as I've got older, I've tried to buy things that I thought were going to be winners in the past. And so my whole jewelry collection is built up from investment gems that I feel are going to be investment gemstones, you know? Yeah. And so I've tried to source from mines which I know aren't going to exist anymore, or from qualities of gems that are very hard to find or in specific sizes. And that's the beauty of the gem world. It's like being a stock trader. You buy your shares, you don't know what's going to happen to the market, but the market can change. You can do your best to forecast that. But that's the beauty of the gemstone trade, right?
Do you have any nuggets for our podcast listeners? Obviously, you impart your wisdom on telly, but if we have any new people that are watching that may not be familiar with the work that you do with Gemporia, have you got any nuggets of wisdom of maybe what you would say is the next big gemstone or piece that they need to get in with now?
Yeah, I mean, gems that are being discussed at the moment. I'm sticking with my zircon, to be honest. Let me just back that up quickly. If you go and have a look at Tiffany's 2025 Blue Book, and you go and open up their 2025 Blue Book, so every year they launch a Blue Book, which is their like catalog forecast for the trends that are coming up this year. They've got blue zircon in the middle of their main two pieces. Right, the main two pieces. The first piece went to auction at a guesstimate of 40,000 sale price. It went for 103,000 US dollars. Okay, so I'm sticking with zircon. However, I'd always alongside that go, tourmaline is always growing. It is the biggest growing gemstone in the last 5 years in the gemstone market. So that's always something you want to stick with. But actually, that's the obvious one to go for. Where I'd really separate it out now is around mint tourmalines as well. So your seafoam green kind of mint tourmalines are becoming very, very popular. Spinel is already on the rise, but I feel like there is far more to go. So Spinel and your pinks or your purples from Burma, if you can get your hands on those at reasonable prices, go ahead and do it. And I have to say as well, if you want to buy a Spinel, this is just a coincidence, but Gemporia as well, we were one of the few companies in the world that Burma invited us to go to just a few years ago. So you have to understand, I can't go to Burma, right? Because of my business card and my job title and my career, I can't go to Burma because I'm a gem buyer. Burma don't allow people like me to go in there and take gemstones out of their country. Reason being is because they want to export it, so they can tax you on the export, helps their country. I get it, it's fine, it helps the country.
Yeah.
But 5 years ago, they opened up the country for 10 days. And this shows you how committed we are to gemstones. I think I was in Southeast Asia at the time, but Steve, on his son's birthday, Jake and Day, on that day, dropped their bags and went straight to Burma. And the reason why we're able to provide those is because we were able to get into the country for a 5-day period, and we bought physically as much as we could back with us. So Spinel is another big one as well. But I'd also say to people out there on the marketplace, you're going to start seeing a lot more color gemstones out there right now. Lab-grown diamonds has thrown the diamond world into a bit of a turmoil, and people now are starting to move over to colored gemstones. And so what I'm loving now is when I'm walking to my store, I can see actually outside of your ruby, your sapphire, and your diamond, I'm seeing like malachites now. I'm seeing like lapis lazulis now. You know, I'm seeing like power shell. I saw power shell in the jeweler the other day. Like, we've been working for this 20 years. We know what it's like, but no other jeweler knows what power shell is, right? And so going back to what I was saying, I would always stick with your classics. So yeah, your zircon for sure. Tourmaline is definitely one in your mid varieties. I think your Spinel, of course, in your pinks and purples. Blue is also absolutely utterly incredible if you can get your hands on that. External of that, ruby prices are crazy right now. I can't afford to buy rubies right now. The market is just asking for such a ridiculous price on those. And one thing our customers will have noticed over the last year for sure is the lack of 18 karat stones that we brought to market. I normally do probably 50 18 karat gold collections over a year. Over a 2-year period, sorry. So that's one every 2 weeks. I've brought you maybe less than 5 this year. That is simply down to the cost now that it really is required to be able to do caliber gems. Yeah. You know, and Cavill & Co hopefully is going to be solving that for you guys in 3 months' time when we come back. But the only reason we can solve that is because over the last 25 years, Debs, my sister, any stone that we've got for a good deal, we've just held back. You know, our vault probably has a good 3,500 carats of gems in for moments like this. Yeah. And we understand more than anything because we started in this kind of world as well. But if you can afford to have patience and afford to wait that time, well, then the value is only going to increase. And so some of the gems that we're going to bring you in 3 months of Debs has had probably in her vault for 9-10 years, you know, and obviously the hardest thing to do is to be able to afford to not sell those. And if you're in that position where you can do that, well, then everyone can be the beneficiary of that. Yeah. Because you can get 20% back on your initial investment, which is great, but your customer is still saving probably 70% as to what the market price would be today, depending on what the stone is.
Is there anything you can tell us about your Cavill & Co launch that's coming up?
Yes. So
any podcast exclusive?
Yeah,
maybe?
for sure. Well, I can tell you, we've got 86 pieces coming for you guys coming in. We've got a plethora of some really cool gems. We're bringing back some more Priba for you guys. That's really what we specialize in. And talk about blue zircon. I've got one piece of blue zircon for the whole show. Okay. And that, again, we can source anything in the world. I can't get you zircon for love of money without paying crazy prices for it. And if I was to bring it back, our customers would be saying, what on earth are you charging me this for? That's the reality of what's going on. So yes, we've got a whole plethora of brand new jewelry, all brand new designs. We've got brand new gemstones. I'm not going to say what those gemstones are. You've never seen them in Cavill & Co before. And Debs and I have been working on this now for 8 months, 84 pieces for 8 months. So, 10 pieces a month to get right. But this is what we love. And so Debbie and I are lucky. As a mother and son, we've always been very close. And one thing I found when I was younger is a lot of like my mates would be like, well, why don't you talk to your mum like that? And so I've been very lucky. And so I spent a lot of time with my mum, especially over the last probably 5 months or so, making sure that her designs are right, making sure that our stones are right. And what we have to ensure as well, Abs, is that everything is perfect. So a stone that we had 8 years ago, does that still really fit with the cutting standard of today's day? Right? And so everything now has to be recut. I manage that from a Bangkok perspective. Debs make sure all of our design work is done. And of course, every piece is handmade. So we have to then, each piece takes probably 2.5 to 3 weeks to get finished. When you times that by 84, you're looking at 160 weeks, 170 weeks. But we obviously got to do that in a 6-month period or whatever. So yes, we've got that coming up.
Exciting.
So yeah, we've got so many exciting things coming up, and over at Gemporia as well, we've got new exciting gems coming your way. It's been harder this year because the price has just increased, and that has been impacted by a huge amount of things, whether it is war, whether it is still the reminiscence of COVID, or whether it is just the cost of living for all of us increasing.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing we also wanted to touch on with you is gold prices. It's such a big topic in the industry at the moment, but it's so hard to kind of get across just how much it's increasing. Is it such a rare thing over the past 2 or 3 years, the spike? Is it always increased at a similar kind of rate? And is it just now that it's very, very expensive?
So
tell us a little bit about the forecasting.
Yeah, sure. So realistically, in my early career, gold didn't really fluctuate too much. So continuing understanding, I think it's pretty much increased in price by about 8 times over the last 20 years. That gives you an understanding, 8 times. But of that 8 times, I would probably say there has been more of an impact, certainly over the last 2.5 years in the industry. So actually, since I've known you pretty much, you've probably seen more fluctuation in precious metal pricing. And that is to do with a whole bunch of things. First of all, and this is probably stuff you won't necessarily hear about, right, is that China 3 years ago were holding back and were buying a huge amount of gold. Then the thought behind the reason why they were buying gold, and what countries will do, Abby, is they'll buy a lot of gold because it keeps their currency stable, okay? And currency stability is really key. If your currency drops, you as a country will lose out. And so what China were doing, they were buying huge amounts of gold and storing it over in China. Now there were a number of reasons why they were saying this. They were talking about potentially they were going to have a bit of a problem with Taipei, and therefore if the US government put sanctions on them, then their currency would still stay strong. There are also other reasons why, is because they knew this was going to happen, and that they knew that the forecast of it increasing, then buying more of it, they're only going to get a better return on investment. The problem is this though, Abs, is that it's not just gold anymore, it's not just silver. Up until a week ago, platinum has now followed it. You have now got more silver being used than has been used at any point on our planet. And I read an article just 3 days ago that shows if we keep using silver reserves like we currently are, because we're currently using the solar panels, I hate to say it, but war uses a lot of silver. Every mobile phone uses silver. Every individual car battery uses silver. If we carry using silver in the same way we do, by 2050, 99% of the world's supply of silver will be completely diminished.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
I've invested in silver about a year and a half ago because I don't see silver price slowing down, which is really scary for our point. Gold price isn't slowing down either. And gold is used now more than it's ever been used as well. Again, your mobile, why do you think everyone recycle? Why do you think mobile phone companies want you to recycle their phone? Because they want to take all the gold out of it, right? So they can recycle it and get it back. And the value of that gold is there. But gold is now used in everything. It's a really good conductor. And so if I'm going to be really honest with you, Abby, I don't see it slowing down at all. China had a big discovery of gold, I want to say earlier on this year, massive discovery. And you'd think that would then, because gold reserves increasing, that would decrease the price of it. It hasn't moved. And so I hate to say it, now that our saving grace was platinum. So everyone was actually using platinum now because it was more affordable actually than using gold. Platinum, as of last week, has now jumped on that bandwagon. And I really hate to say it, but it's going to be a real big problem for a lot of jewelers out there.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you put it like that, because it's so not exclusive to precious metals. It's just resources on our planet in general, isn't it?
Back in the day, gold was used for jewelry. That was it, right?
Yeah.
It was used for precious things. Now it's used in everything. I bet you there's some gold in this microphone somewhere, right? There's gold all over the place. And so one thing we have to be wary of, and this is actually where I really feel for your retail jeweler now. So I've got a lot of friends that are retail jewelers, that have their little shops. And retail jewelers don't work like we do here at Gemporia, where, we'll buy, 20 kilos of gold, and, that's going to cover us for the next 6 months. Retail jewelers they fill their window. They spend, I don't know, 100,000 filling their window. Then they sell a piece of 5 and another piece of 2 and a piece for 3. They recoup that. They take their little margins away to pay themselves, and they have to go right back and buy gold tomorrow. At whatever price that is, or next week, or whatever price that is, they have to succumb to whatever the gold price is on that day or that month, unless they want to wait it out where they potentially aren't able to put things in their window. And this is why we're seeing our record jewelers dropping out of the marketplace. Even the likes of H. Samuel, F. Hines, the prices that they are charging now compared to what it was last year is crazy. And so the reason I say that is that this is where Gemporia's business model is incredible, is we will buy... when the last time we bought gold, let's say we bought gold in February 23, when the price is really great, right? We don't buy a kilo or 5 kilos. We'll buy 35 kilos, and we'll invest $2 million bucks into that, right? Now, what that means, Abs, is that while the rest of the market does this, as it has done over the last 3 years, well, our price stays like this. Our gold price doesn't fluctuate because we paid that rate, and we're going to keep that rate consistent over a 3-year period. And this is where a lot of customers will come to us and say, how are you selling gold rings for half the price than the high street jewelers? Well, that's because we were fortunate enough to be able to have the money to invest in that, And so that puts us in an amazing, advantageous position. It's very similar to what we do with gems. If we can afford to sit on these gems, watch the price increase, then there's only going to be one beneficiary, our customer. Yes, we benefit too, off small margins, but we still benefit because we work on a numbers game here at Gemporia. And so I don't honestly think there is a better place on this planet to buy gemstone jewelry right now than someone like Gemporia. Because unless you've had stones for up to 15, 16, 17 years, Steve got pieces that are over 20 years old, or unless you're buying gold or manufacturing in the efficiencies that we do, then it's going to be very hard, And so what now people you'll see, and here's a tip for anyone walking to any jeweler. You want to know about the quality of that jeweler? Ask them what their average diamond grade is. That's all you need to do. And if they come back to you and they say it's a D flawless diamond grade, well, get your checkbook out because you're spending a lot of money in that jeweler. If you walk into H. Samuel, and my granddad taught me this, you go to H. Samuel 10 years ago, their average grade was an SI G color diamond. That was the average across the market, okay? For anyone that doesn't know about diamond color grading, I can go into that. But you walk in today, 10 years later, their average grade is I2 grade. So I2 stands for included, stage 2 level. So you can see it with the naked eye, and the color won't be G or H or I, it'll be J. But they're still charging you the same price for that. So now people are walking thinking they're getting a good deal, but actually they're not. They're getting a lower grade diamond, or they're getting a thinned out piece of gold for more money than they would have paid even a few years ago, and that's a real shame to see. And this is where Gemporia's advantage comes into play. We've never dropped our diamond grading. We haven't dropped out our certification levels. We haven't dropped any of our gradings because we haven't had to succumb to the changing market.
So we know, obviously, you've been in the industry for a really long time. Tell us, what is your wildest industry story? Now, I've put you on the spot there.
Wildest industry story?
Yeah, you've been a part of the gemstone world for...
I think, do you know what? I have been. There's some stories I can tell you for sure. Previous to last year, the world's biggest gemstone heist, right, was in Belgium in 2002. Some guys stole $100 million worth of diamonds.
Wow.
Right? Biggest heist ever in 2002. Last year, that heist was beaten. Okay, I say beaten as if that's a good thing. That a new record was raised. The bar was raised. Some guys robbed $400 million worth of Paraiba tourmaline, the one I was talking about, zinc is the most in value, from a location in Mozambique. $400 million. And this heist was probably one of the most under-discussed heists that I have honestly ever heard of. And of course, because it's not a diamond, it goes to show you, right? Because people don't understand the value of Paraiba tourmaline. These guys understand the value of Paraiba tourmaline. And so that heist tells you everything you need to know about the value of that gem. They didn't go and rob diamonds. They didn't go and rob ruby. They went and rob the most valuable, the most appreciative gemstone that you can find on our planet. It has never been found. And that $400 million is increasing in value by the day. Honestly, I don't know how these guys got away with it. I don't know how they got into it. But that right there for me is the most significant gemstone story you could ever imagine. Those guys holding on to that material don't just hold some of the last remaining supplies of really materials come out of that mine, but they've got the last remaining supplies of that grade of pre tourmaline that can be found.
I wonder how they would they ever caught?
No. Some been caught. But you're in the middle of Mozambique. If you've ever been to Mozambique, it's a very derelict place. It's very easy to get lost in Mozambique, and it's very easy to get something lost in Mozambique.
Wouldn't it be kind of super obvious, though, who did it because of it? There's such a rarity of supply. All of a sudden, there's new kids on the block with all this tourmaline, and people are thinking, where have you found that?
Very, very good point. But I think you have to think about that every industry is the same. So look, if I'm a gem dealer, right, if somebody comes to me and says, Toby, I've got some Mozambique Paraiba, right, that's normally selling at, let's say, $10,000 a carat, and he's giving it for $5,000, I'm either going to be extremely impressed, right, or I'm going to suspect. But ultimately, I'm still getting Paraiba tourmaline at half the price it should be. And I hate to say it, right, but gemstone dealers out there, you get an offer like that come across your table, you're snapping it up. I'm sorry to say it. Right, I'm sorry to say it, right? But it happens all the time. And what these guys will be doing, I'm sure, they're not going to be saying, okay, I've got this Paraiba, and they'll just be taking stones. Right? One 5-carat stone, right, is worth, let's say, they can sell it off cheap for $25,000. Sell that to that guy. I'll sell this to this guy. When you sell 10 stones, you've got £250,000 in the bank, and you've still got another 5 million stones you can sell back.
Like you said before, it's a waiting game. You've got to be patient, haven't you?
And if you're not greedy, then fine. Like every year that goes by, that value's going to increase. So the average price per carat this year of Type A pre-tourmaline is $40,000. Last year it was $36,000. That's $4,000 a year. You wait 2 years, it's worth an extra $8,000 a carat.
Wow.
Yeah, and you've got what, 1 million carats? Well, that's going to jump up by $4 million a year, right? And so this is crazy. And probably my favorite story, I think my favorite gemstone story, talking of heists and diamond heists, there was a jeweler in Paris, Harry Winston, jeweler, one of the biggest diamond jewelers out there.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch of guys that were trying to rob it, and they robbed this store dressed as women and robbed this store. And they successfully robbed this store dressed as women. They robbed 102 million euros, I want to say, of diamonds. And the only reason why one of them was caught is because one of them called one of the staff by their first name without knowing their first name, and they figured out that it was one of the previous security guards that was in on this heist. But these guys literally dressed up as women to go and make a massive diamond heist over in Paris in Harry Winston, which was just incredible. And the fact that he got caught because they recognized his voice because he was a security guard is ridiculous. So yeah.
We should do a whole episode on heists.
We can do a whole episode on whatever you want to do. I mean, there is so much that we can talk about in the industry. We can talk, of course, just like with any industry, there are certain things that you want to talk about and that you won't hear about in the real world. But of course it goes on, you know. There are so many things in the gem world that make things complex. What's to say that people aren't mixing lab-grown diamonds in with natural diamonds? What's to say people aren't certifying things in the wrong way? What's to say that people, you know, aren't mixing gems in with other gemstones to increase the value of a parcel? And this is where networking and trust is the biggest part. I don't trust a lot of people in the gemstone world. Very rarely trust a lot of people in the gemstone world. You can't afford to. Because you need to have everything signed, sealed, and delivered. And that's one of the reasons why I think we have some trust here at Gemporia. Everything that we import, that we sell on screen is certified, is backed up, is checked. I've seen people get sold rubies that 15 years later they realize they're fake and they're synthetic, right? And that's just in one person I know. You know, it happens all of the time. And unfortunately, with a growing industry and a growing interest for colored gems, more people are taking the nick. You know, I see Temu selling bangles for $6.99. They're not real gemstone bangles, you know, they're not real whatever it may be.
On TikTok shop, you see like diamond brackets, cubic zirconia, and it's like, well, it's not diamond there.
Exactly.
It's a fake
you know, and so, yeah, you know, there is so much we can talk about, but I think the most important thing is that our customers realize that you're dealing with real treasure here. This is proper treasure. Our gemstones are proper nuggets and the best part is they're hidden in the most vast and the hardest places to find them in the world. And so, you know, I was lucky enough, just to segue just quickly, when I was younger, we did a show, we did a show with Discovery Channel, right? Where we went to Tanzania, we went to Romania to get a spectrolite, we went over to, you know, look at gems all around the world. And that's the kind of education that is now allowing people to understand. And you look at opalback hunters, for example. Those guys, everyone knows about that show. People understand now that opals are rare and they're really hard to get their hands on. Comparably to a diamond mine, it's chalk and cheese. It's completely chalk and cheese,
I have a last question for you. What would you say is the most under talked about thing in the industry? Either the biggest misconception or a kind of nugget that's not made clear in the industry?
In 2025, I think certification is more crucial than a lot of people understand it to be. A lot of gemstone jewelers will sell you a gemstone without understanding where it's from, if it's heated, if it's treated, what it's been through. And I think a lot of people's conception is a gemstone is a gemstone. A gemstone is not a gemstone. I could give you a gemstone today, Abby, that look like the most expensive blue sapphire in the world that has been diffused and dyed, but you look at it and go, oh my god, that's the best sapphire. That cost me £70 to get, right? I can also show you one that's $7 million that's exactly the same. They're two very different gemstones. And I think this is where we interlink with lab-grown diamonds. We're going to not talk about it for very long, but people's conception now is that a lab-grown diamond has the same value as a natural diamond. It doesn't by any means. And to anybody tuning in that owns a lab-grown diamond, you know what? You want to get a big look, you want to save some money on getting that big sparkly look, go ahead and do it. But don't invest in a lab-grown diamond and don't expect it to be worth 5% of what it's worth, what you paid for it when you walk out of that jewelry store. And that's the crucial part, I think. Lab-grown diamond can be made in 15 minutes now. I can get you a lab-grown diamond, whatever shape, size you want, like that. I'm not even in the industry in synthetic stones. But one people's misconception is that your natural diamond right now value has been impacted by those lab-grown diamonds. It hasn't at all. Lab-grown diamonds in 5 years' time, Abby, when you and I sitting back looking at this, will be the same as cubic zirconia. A cubic zirconia is pretty much a lab-grown diamond. They're the same thing. You achieve the same thing. The same as a moissanite. The thing is that it's lab-grown. And so one thing I'd say to people is if you're looking to invest in lab-grown diamonds, don't do it. You want the aesthetic, go ahead and do it. But now is not the time to be thinking that you're going to get a return on investment from that. And natural diamonds, don't misconstrue what's going on in the market. They will always hold their value. Yes, they've been shaken up by lab-grown diamonds, but ever since the GIA changed their certification process, natural diamonds, last year I think they went up being by 35% last year in your GT8 SI grade, which is exactly what we're looking to do.
I saw an article by a professional jeweler that said that they are working on developing lab-grown gold.
Interesting.
Do you think that obviously De Beers has done a bit of a U-turn on lab-grown diamonds? They're now just going to be...
That was their biggest mistake. I don't know what on earth they were thinking, Abby. That is there's one in my life, right? You're too young for this, and I sound really old now, right?
You said that twice today.
You are too young for this, right? There's a big mistake that Yahoo made many years ago, right? When the internet was getting big, right? That cost them billions of dollars, right? Completely ruined them because they didn't do what all the other search engines were doing. De Beers did exactly the same thing to themselves. They shot themselves in the foot, and the biggest mistake they made was land to degrade them alongside the same grading scale as normal diamond. They're going to clarity. Are you crazy? And so now they've retorted, thank God, right? But sorry, you were getting at...
Do you think that it will follow the same trajectory where hopefully we'll only start using synthetic gold?
Do you know where gold's from? Do you know how gold... Do you know where gold comes from?
Is gold from outer space?
It is.
I'm so glad that I got that right, because I'm going to sound really stupid.
Where from in outer space? Do you know what causes gold?
Is it Mercury?
No, it's the explosion of a star, of a neutron star.
Wow.
So neutron stars explode and it scatters all of this gold, and it hit our planet over years and years of time. And so what's really cool is the reason when you look at like zircon, right? You got a zircon ring. You have got the oldest gemstone on Earth, right? So it's 4.4 billion years old. The only reason we know our Earth is 4.4 billion years old is because of zircon and uranium decay inside it, surrounded in a gold ring. You've got the oldest gem in the world surrounded by gold dust. I mean, that is just as cool as it gets. Synthetic gold, that's really interesting. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I saw it today.
I like that, and I'll tell you why I like that. Gold mining is pretty tough on our planet, and gold has so many uses in different ways. So for example, use synthetic gold in all your devices and use it as where the value is naturally seen, and use real gold in your, in your rings or in your your bronze statues or whatever you're doing, right? And that's where the value will lie. I think synthetic gold would certainly help our planet out and our resources for sure. And the same for silver and platinum. If you could use it in an industrial way, like we use diamond. We use diamond cutting saws, right? We use sapphire lenses on our watches, right? So if you can use that in an industrial way from synthetic gold, then great, right? It's a little bit like fuel. They're trying to create a synthetic fuel. If you can do that, then great. Now is it going to impact? It's going to have a massive impact on our fossil fuels at this point, but actually it's going to have a massive impact on our environment. So I'm actually in bed. I like the whole synthetic gold thing. Thinking about it for 2 minutes.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been so fun.
Thank you for having me.
And hopefully we'll have you again soon.
Of course. I think if anyone wants to have any discussions about anything, I guess that's what our comment section's about. If you are watching this on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you'd like to know about anything specific or any specific story, then feel free to let me know and I can bring it back on the next podcast.
Yeah, and we're here to answer your questions. So anything that you have, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.